in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio, the show that helps you build the business you need so you can live the life you want. I am Ralph Brogden, the original Rebelpreneur, but not the only Rebelpreneur. There are lots of us out there. My daughter the other day sent me a text and she said it's really hard to adult today. Now she's in her mid-20s and I figure she's going to eventually figure it out. But adulting, what is that? What does that even mean and how can we adult like a revolutionary? Today's guest is going to help us dial that in. I'm speaking with Rachel Alexandria. She was a licensed psychotherapist for 8 years. So I don't know that 25 minutes is going to be enough time for her to really solve all of my problems, but we can get a head start in that direction. She now serves as a soul medic and reality mentor. Rachel teaches how to adult like a revolutionary. Her clients become masterful at creating powerful lives of purpose and meaning. She is the author of 2 best-selling books about navigating conflict and about conquering the inner critic. Rachel, welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So excited to have a licensed psychotherapist. I'm so excited I can hardly spit the word out. A licensed psychotherapist.
Formerly.
Formerly. But now you're working in a very a much more creative and unrestricted space as a soul medic and a reality mentor, teaching people how to adult like a revolutionary. Well, help me to understand what my daughter is talking about and what you are talking about. How do we adult like a revolutionary?
Well, so some of your listeners probably have heard of the meme, cannot adult today, do not want to adult. It's a thing that the millennials started saying. And what it speaks to originally is this idea that you have to grow up from being a kid and you have to take responsibility and pay your bills. And, they'll say things like, oh, I did the laundry today, #adulting. It's basically like doing the basic stuff you need to do when your parents aren't taking care of you anymore.
So there's actually a name for that. Yeah, it is. We've always called it being an adult, but now they've taken that and it's become a verb now.
Exactly, because they're millennials. So adulting like a revolutionary, when I was actually working with one of your guests, Dr. Michelle Mazur, we were talking about how I help people adult better when we were trying to find my own 3-word rebellion. Mm-hmm. And what I was doing this big rant about was like, adulting is so much more than that. It's really about becoming your own personal authority. Like, stepping into a place in your life where there's really no authority above you anymore. There's no parent that you're trying to please, that your inner child is worried about, disappointing. There's no intermediary between you and your perception of what your life is about, you in spirit. It's you. So how do you be the person where the buck stops on all levels? Like, give yourself permission to do what you want, step outside of the matrix that isn't serving you, and so on.
That's a real powerful paradigm, I think, for millennials, for rebelpreneurs, anybody of any age, that it's about stepping into who you really are and really becoming your own authority. There's a lot of power there.
Absolutely. I think most of us are not our own authority. That's really common. People may not think so. Like on the surface, they'd say, "No, I'm the one in charge of my life." But when you really dial into, why are you not doing this thing that you've been dreaming of? Why haven't you said that thing to your spouse, to your coworker, to whoever? There's all these shoulds about who people think they're supposed to be or what's appropriate. That wouldn't be polite. I wouldn't be being nice. That's not how we do it in our family, and that's not being your own authority. That's taking the operating instructions from someone else and somewhere else and trying to shackle yourself to it.
We take a lot of pride in being our own person. Nobody tells me what to do. And yet, when it gets right down to it, a lot of us are just playing the role, reading the scripts that society and our friends, our neighbors, our families have handed to us and said, this is how you are supposed to behave. And we've only just begun to scratch the surface of what it means to write your own script, to be your own person and not do what everybody around you says you must do.
Exactly.
How do we?
Yeah. And
so before we get into how, let's talk more about who. Who do you work with? Who is the best prospect in your mind for helping them to begin to adult like a revolutionary?
I'm looking for the Neos out there, if I can make a Matrix reference.
Oh, you can all day long. That's my favorite movie. I've only seen it about 23 times, and I still love to watch it. Absolutely.
But did you see it in the theater when it first came out?
No, we didn't have theaters back then.
Come on.
That was 1999. We didn't have Netflix or anything. I don't know how did I watch it? I probably watched it on VHS cassette.
See, that's the thing. I saw it in the theater when it first came out before we knew what a big deal it was. And that just blew my mind. It was such an amazing experience. I love when that happens.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for the Neos out there. And I'm also, for the folks who've seen Hitch, there's a character named Allegra in that movie who's actually very famous and powerful, but she's not feeling famous and powerful. So I work with heart-centered people who want to create change in the world around them. So, I'm interested in the people who, there's lots of people I think who are very ambitious and rise to power. And then they're like, oh, shoot, I forgot my heart and my soul. And I can help those people, but the people I really love working with are the people who are like, oh, I care so much about the world around me. I care so much about my relationships. I care so much about my mission. But I have all these invisible obstacles, which AKA is fear, that are keeping me from rising into my greatness. Those are the people that I get really excited about helping, because I'm like, oh, we can, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this program, but
no.
We can make that fear your bench, you know what I mean? We can leap off of that.
Yeah.
We can make it, we can get you over that into what you're really meant to be, because everything that's stopping you from that greatness isn't really you. It's usually just lies and limitations.
Now, I have interviewed and spoken with a lot of former psychotherapists who are now doing coaching and other interesting work outside the bounds of psychotherapy and all of the restrictions that you would have in a typical psychotherapist practice. You describe yourself now as a soul medic and a reality mentor. Tell us about that transition. What made you make that switch over from psychotherapy to soul medic and reality mentor, and what does that mean?
So I was never your typical therapist, and I would say that right from the get-go. I loved my training. I loved doing the deep work with people, but I always wanted to have more, I just wanted to have more skin in the game. I wanted it to be more than just that 60-minute or 90-minute session. I would tell my clients, hey, you can reach out to me in between if you need to, you can have 15 minutes, and people never would. And I said, the work happens in between session too. So, and in the meantime, I was always innovating new things, writing a book, making a product, really trying to dial in more and more on who am I and what do I really have to offer. So I say that there's two different kinds of people who are in business. There's business owners and there's entrepreneurs. And folks who, and no shade on either kind, like we absolutely need dentists, and we need traditional therapists who just fill the practice and see their 20 to 30 people a week. And they want to do that for a long time. But we also need entrepreneurs who are creating, who are innovating, who are building something beyond what's expected or normal or easy to understand in a elevator pitch, basically.
Yeah.
I was always an entrepreneur. I just saw it from the beginning, and I struggled trying to fit in one mold. So eventually, through multiple conversations with Spirit, and I think when I finally felt like I was, it was funny. I finally had my license after all the 3,000 hours of client time and all the supervision and everything. And then within the next year, I had this really clear conversation with Spirit where it was like, I actually need to shift into doing something that's even more involved, more invested, and working with people with bigger vision, I would say.
Very interesting.
I loved my clients. I loved everyone that I worked with for the most part, but I really love supporting people with big dreams and big ambitions.
So where does the soul medic come in? Is that like a first aid for, like an EMT for people who need critical care and emergency care for their soul? And I love that, by the way. But how do you see yourself in that role?
I see myself as a spiritual teacher and a healer. So it's hard to find like any one phrase that best encompasses me. Soul medic is, like if there's some critical issue going on that is on the spiritual plane or on the energetic plane, I do have transformational tools and capability to help you dial in and make that shift, whether that's releasing ancestral burdens or, getting rid of some kind of toxic parasite being that's like been siphoning on you that you got when you were out on the town or something. Like I had a friend came back one time from South America, and he'd done a bunch of the, psychedelic and spiritual journeying stuff that you can do there, but without enough of a container. And I saw him and he was just not himself. I was like, what is going on with you? And I said, hey, come here. And we just did a session. We just did a healing session where I just removed stuff that he'd picked up along the journey that he didn't know better than to shield himself from and cleanse out of his system.
And we probably have that kind of junk hanging on to us all the time, everywhere.
Yep.
We don't have to go to
Pretty
South
much.
America to get junk like that in our life.
No.
We just have to interact with people. Go to the grocery store. You can pick up stuff, and especially working in a job you don't like, or living in a community that doesn't support you, or whatever situation or relationship does not support you. I could see where we can pick up a lot of unhealthy and parasitic relationships and other things along the way that we need to get rid of.
Yeah, and just to further the Matrix metaphor, like that little device they put in him, if you want to see the agents as, I don't know, unseen, challenging forces that they're not just trying to mess with us. I mean, ultimately, everything is here for our learning and our growth, but on a lower plane, stuff messes with us, and everybody needs a practitioner or two, or some kind of professional who helps you get perspective on what's going on, and can see on multiple planes. And that's what I do. And
getting someone on the outside to look at and help you to be more aware of what's going on. It's kind of like giving yourself a haircut. You can, but it's not going to be a great result, right? You really need someone else to do that for you. And that's what's so great. You have been in a helping profession of one sort or another for many years. What would you say is the most common problem with the people that you help?
Oh boy. It's a battle between resistance and fear, which really go hand in hand. I'm just recently feeling a bit of a rant about people's resistance, their attachment to their resistance as an addiction. Like people really like their problems, even though they tell you they don't. They're like, oh, this problem, it's so terrible. I hate this problem, but they don't want to let it go either.
Well, it's kind of like people that when they get a diagnosis and they refer to it as my cancer. I would accept that. I would say it's a cancer or it's the cancer, but it's not my cancer. I don't want to claim that. So we take ownership of things unintentionally that kind of identify us as a victim, and you're teaching people how to let that stuff go and move beyond that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I really think that people have so much more fear than they're willing to acknowledge, and more sadness and more anger also. So all of the resistance is really just coping mechanisms to not have to deal with those emotions. But the thing is, if you don't accept where you are, you can't get anywhere else.
Well, that's going to lead me to the next question is, how do we overcome this? And what is a process? I always like to give our listeners little self-help tips, 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever it takes to begin to move them in a certain direction, beyond where they are. What can we begin to do to learn, or at least take steps towards adulting like a revolutionary?
So one of the things I teach is how to cultivate the neutral inner observer. So this part of yourself inside your head that understands that you need to both be on the dance floor, in the dance of life, but also watching from the balcony at the same time. Take some presence, but if you can do that, then you have so much more information about what's happening to you and when it's happening, and you can do something with that. The second thing is to get honest with yourself. I made a commitment to myself when I was actually 15. I remember the moment, it was very seminal. And I said, no matter what else I do, I'm never going to lie to myself. I want my own honest answers. I can lie to other people if I choose to. That's totally fine. That's within my choice. But I will not lie to myself. So if you get honest with yourself, then you have, again, you skip over all that time you're worried about wasting with your problem because you just accept what's true as quickly as possible. So then you can do something with it.
That's very powerful, because if you can get people to be honest with themselves and get them to make that commitment, then the next step is, if you're really being honest with yourself, what are you afraid of? What is holding you back? Now you can begin to ask them some very powerful questions, and they've already made a commitment to be honest to themselves. You're just kind of standing there as a triggering mechanism to help them ask the right questions, and that's got to be pretty powerful.
And to help make it safe. I think a lot of people are afraid to be honest with themselves because they're afraid of the judgment that follows, which is really just shame, right? So I help make that safe by whatever the truth is. There's no shame or judgment coming from me, and I help people not be in shame and judgment with themselves about whatever's true. It's just what's true.
And that's part of
we're all human.
That's part of the neutral observer. And I heard someone explain this similar to the way you did it. They use the analogy of an anthropologist. You're taking a step back. You're observing behavior. You're not passing judgment on the behavior. You're just observing it. And to be able to do that, be your own anthropologist and just kind of observe your movements, observe your behaviors from day to day, and without judgment, but just here's what's happening, here's what's going on, and then being honest about your feelings, honest about what's going on in your head. I love this. This is great.
I have one more if we
Sure.
have time, which is become the constant gardener of your healing and learning experiences. By which I mean, I think a lot of people run around trying to gather information. It's sort of like you wake up in a house that's empty of decoration and you think, oh, it's so bare here. I need to go out and get some stuff and make my place beautiful. So you go out in the marketplace and you see a bunch of things and you say, oh, that's great. And you buy this and that and the other and you bring it home. And most people set their bags down in the doorway and don't open them. And the next day they wake up and their place is bare and they say, oh no, I need to decorate my place. And they just keep repeating this ad nauseum and their doorway becomes cluttered with all these bags. They're almost tripping over, they find all their notes. Oh, I took all these notes. If you don't take what you learn and then sit with it and like really touch it and feel it and love it and integrate it and find a spot on the wall and love it and look at it all the time. That's what I do with my healing and learning experiences, which is why I am where I am as relatively young as I am. And that's what I teach my clients to do. Like they'll say, why does this happen? Okay, well, we've talked about that. Why is not here? Let's look at it, but let's do the practice. Let's come back to this thing you picked up from the marketplace and look at it and love it and live it. That's what creates change.
And it's a process. You don't just plant the seed and walk away. You've got to cultivate that thing.
Exactly. People just want to go buy more seeds. I don't have a garden. I need more seeds. No, you don't. You have lots of seeds. Plant them, tend them, water them.
Yeah. This is really, really useful personally. Also in our business, I see people who are very gifted, but they will hide behind certifications as a way to say, well, I'm not quite ready. I've got to go get this certification. I got to go get this degree. I got to go through this program first and then, but then never comes. They're just collecting credentials and they're never making the impact that they could be making. So I hope if you're listening and that describes you, and it probably describes 80% of people who are trying to get things going, but they're still in the learning mode, and they're always in the learning mode. Listen, you're going to always be learning no matter what you're doing, no matter how credentialed or how degreed you become. You've got to always be the constant learner, and to use this illustration, to become the constant gardener. You're never going to be finished, but you still have to make a contribution. You have to do something in the world. And you're never going to be perfect, but that's okay because the clients and customers that you are attracting, they're not perfect either. And you don't have to know everything. You only have to know a little bit more than the person coming to you for help knows.
Right. And be honest with yourself about that. Like people want to delay behind this shield of I'm not ready.
Right.
And I say, you're never ready. That doesn't happen. Ready is this thing that tells you, oh, I know how to do it perfectly. Well, guess what? If you've never done it, you're not going to do it perfectly. It's not going to happen. You just have to take steps and try stuff. That's the way that you conquer fear.
Yeah. That is so powerful. That is so very true. What are you working on right now, Rachel, that you're excited about that you'd like to share with our listeners?
So I've been working with individual clients for 12 years, and I've finally felt like I have a way to distill all this wisdom that I share individually with a group. So I'm building the material for leading a group to adult-like revolutionaries. I don't have any sales pages built yet. I'm not quite at that point because it's going to be like a trial. Like, here's me walking my talk. I don't have everything perfect, but I am looking for people for the first trial run of the Adult Like a Revolutionary group program. If people want to get a sample of what some of the things that I'll talk about will be like, and it'll be much more advanced in the group, they can check out the Adulting Revolution email list. And all you have to do is text the word adulting to the phone number 314-665-1767. So that's the word adulting. Text it to 314-665-1767.
Wow, you sound like you could do radio for a living.
I tried voiceover work for a little bit and realized, oh, that's another thing that I would have to market and pitch. But thank you. I do meditations. I do sell meditations.
Yeah. Very, very cool. So lots of great wisdom and great practical help, I think, that is going to be useful for listeners in your personal life to grow up and become your own authority. And that certainly translates over into building the business you need so that you can live the life you want and really stepping into who you are. So this has been a great conversation. Rachel, any final thoughts or words of wisdom you'd like to leave us with?
Whatever you do today, consider how it's taking care of your future self. So you might want to not want to do an extra chore tonight, but tomorrow your future self will be so happy and relieved if you took the time to pack her bag or make her lunch. Whatever you do today is what your future self has to either deal with or enjoy tomorrow.
I like that. So don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today. Take care of your future self. I love that. I've been speaking with Rachel Alexandria. She was a licensed psychotherapist for 8 years and now serves as a soul medic and reality mentor. Rachel teaches how to adult like a revolutionary. You can find out more about her and connect with her and find out more about her best-selling books and her program at rachelalexandria.com. We'll have that link on the website as well. Rachel, it's been a real pleasure to chat with you. Thank you so much for being on Rebelpreneur Radio today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at rebelpreneur.com.